Welcome to the Two Ronnies.
And it's good evening for me.
I'm Ronnie Parker, obviously, in this Two Ronnies cosplay.
What are you trying to say about the small bloke in the armchair?
I'm the one who, I'm not the one who writes all the good things.
So I must be the one with the short, fat, hairy legs.
Oh no! I mean, Danica couldn't even get her leg up last week.
I'm not saying anything about Brazilian.
No. Welcome. It's International Week. Have you got international fever? We have. That's why they won't let us into the Halliwell Jones on. That's why Warrington Lee's on the telly, because they're there the day after. Is anyone actually going to watch Warrington League on Thursday night? I mean, there must be. Is there any Euros on? I think it finishes on Wednesday for a bit. It's International Week. We're excited. The Combined Nations team may come out while we're on the air.
We may be in it.
We might be in it because nobody else is. Tim says, "Can I have 4 candles? 4 candles or 4 candles?
Can I have 4 biscuits?
Plenty of biscuits." So the Combined Nations team might be out. Do you want to hear the England squad? Do you want to hear the England squad? Because I've got that. Sean Wayne, who would like to swap places with Gareth Southgate if you're watching on Friday. Might have picked a better team. This is in alphabetical order, not all in where they'll play on the pitch, because there's 19 of them anyway. Bateman, Clark, Cooper, Curry, Davis, Farrell, Gale, Hanley, Knowles, Lynn, Lomax, McShane, Makinson, Oledsky, Philbin, Ratchford, Tompkins, Walmsley and Westerman.
Tompkins and Davis in a car as we speak, driving 36 hours from Catalan up to join the squad because there are no scheduled flights.
That's content. I hope they're filming it. It could be like Coogan and the other fella.
Well, as long as it isn't like Corden and anybody singing, we'll be alright.
Yeah, as long as he's never involved in Rugby League, we'll be alright, aren't we? It's an England team with the restrictions that they can't be any NRL players. That Jake Connor's not allowed to be picked because he's Marta number 1 and he's Marta number 2 behind the owner of Leeds Centurions.
But he will be playing against them.
Apparently so. Said in the paper today.
Rumoured. Yeah. So the only 2 players we know who are definitely playing for the Combined Nations All-Stars are both English. Jackson Hastings and Jay Connor.
I might know one more, but I'm not allowed to tell you. It's not that I just can't. It's just.
We're not decrying this fixture in any way whatsoever. What it should have been was the primary entertainment this weekend. And that is the issue. And again, it's not even a shock and a surprise. There are certain people on social media going, it's a disgrace. Actually, we knew about this when the fixtures came out, that this was the international weekend. For reasons over in Australia that the teams from the South Pacific nations couldn't get to. Well, they had a lot of their players in Australia and New Zealand, but there are still restrictions on travel, bringing support, coaching staff and players from Tonga and Fiji and Samoa over. So those internationals were canned. But they got state of origin. And we knew this weekend we were having an international and we scheduled fixtures around it. It's our fault.
Well, I mean, the good news is for Kev, who is not happy. He's happy, though, because he won't have to watch the Hells this week, because they don't have to play Hull Kingston Rovers because they've got COVID. Hampstead's got the worst kicking game in the top tier. I really hope Wolves signs a new 10-year deal. Where though, Kev? Where?
I think Warrington found a way to beat St Helens, and that was to break the game up as much as possible, slow it down as often as they could, and frustrate out wide by cutting off the lines of supply. Hats off to Warrington for doing it. You wouldn't necessarily want to watch that every single week of the year, but if it is right, that is the first time in a league game in the Super League era that St Helens have not scored a try at home.
Wow.
Which must say something about Warrington.
It could be there, yeah. That's what it says.
Will George Williams be playing for Warrington at Leigh?
Well, he's not playing for England, is he? Because he's not match fit.
But is he fit enough to play, make his Warrington debut? Do we believe that's where he's going?
I can't remember what Sean Wayne said about George Williams on was it Friday, the press conference? It was, wasn't it? Because I asked him about
He was flying in from Canberra this weekend and they were going to give him a fitness test. Apparently he's had the fitness test, he's not fit enough to play.
But he's better on the Gold Coast.
But was that a strange statement by Wigan after their surprise defeat at home to Hull KR?
Very much a surprise, especially with the tipping competition.
That not only were they surprised by Hull KR, who didn't have half-backs that they'd intended to have, but that they then announced straight after the game that they wouldn't be re-signing George Williams, who clearly looks like somebody they could do with next year, as they're losing Jackson Hastings. It's not often that Wigan announce they're not signing somebody.
What does that insinuate then? That they've got somebody else lined up, perhaps, or it doesn't fit in with their plans, or doesn't represent value for money?
I think that might be it. I think that all of the clubs, every single club, is under severe financial pressure and probably working within restricted and limited budgets of what they've already got and other areas in their team that they feel they need to recruit for. It just became a pound too many.
Well done if you add how long into the programme?
5 minutes.
5 minutes before I go fix Facebook. So what's the date, right? It says 21st on the thing. I'm sure it says 21st.
It is the 21st. Yeah, sure. Feels like a long day, but it is definitely 20. We started on the 21st, it's still the 21st.
We just change the Wi-Fi over and we'll be alright. There we go. It is. We live in interesting times, as ever. But
hats off to Hull KR, because to lose Jordan Abdul, who is joint top of the Man of Steel,
their heart and soul at the moment,
and Rowan Milnes with the first instance that there was going to be a COVID issue at Hull KR that's now seen them had to postpone this week's game. To go there with those two ruled out very late on, restrict Wigan to 0 points for over an hour, and then come away with the win. It's really impressed with what Hull KR are doing at the moment, and look very very likely to finish in a playoff position if they carry on this form. Something about them, they've got an innate confidence, I think, which is partly bred by winning, but that is a big result. To go to Wigan at any time and win, but to go to Wigan without your half-backs and win, that is massive. So,
and how much is that down to having the right man in the coaching position there?
It's something to do with having the right man able to do the job that he wants to do, with the resources and players that he needs in his team. I think the recruitment has been superb this year. Takaranga has been brilliant. Ryan Hall, top of the try-scoring charts, another one again. I seriously would have picked him in this England squad.
Well, we discussed that, haven't we, a few times, about his great form for club. Why shouldn't he be in the England squad?
Well, I think he would be there on merit, which is what he said, that when he came back over here he wanted to re-establish himself and maintain his reputation, but once he'd done that, if he was on form, he would like to think that he would still be worthy of a place. He said he wasn't going to retire from England. That was a jersey he absolutely coveted. He wasn't going to give it away. So I would have had him in there. I think he is the kind of player that at international level can trouble Australia, New Zealand, Tonga. Difficult to hold, clearly in form. But I think Danny Maguire going on the coaching staff has had a big influence at Hull KR as well. I think Tony Smith has found somebody who we can say, look, you just go and coach the creative players and sort out our attack, and it seems to be working. It's a good combination. They know each other really well, and Danny's got a smile on his face because he's doing a job, I think, that he feels that he can make an absolute contribution, and not necessarily recruitment, which was a sort of foreign to him. So the balance seems really good. Exciting times if you're a Robin at the moment, I would say.
Rugby League does seem to like putting square pegs in round holes at times. I mean, as you mentioned, we'll go back to the international thing in a bit, but as you've mentioned, Danny Maguire, he obviously a former Leeds player in an administrative, well, not in an administrative role now, but in a coaching role.
Yes.
But a former Leeds Rhino in an administrative role, but not for much longer, is Kevin Sinfield, who joins the great Rugby League talent drain to rugby union, which used to be the other way, but now goes the other way because they pay money. More money, I should say, legally, with tax and everything. So a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of, we've got to keep him in the sport kind of thing, but what job do we give Kevin Sinfield now? Because I'm not sure what else there's left for him to do necessarily.
He's been at the RFL, director of rugby kind of role there, head of performance. I think he really enjoyed that. That actual putting in pathways, and I think we should credit him as well with, may not have come up with the idea of having all 3 World Cups, men, women's and wheelchair together, but he certainly put in performance pathways that treated all those 3 teams equally, gave them access to similar kind of resources, and made sure that the preparation they would have for the World Cup would be the very best it could be, and that there would be no distinguishing between the teams if we were serious about equal billing. I think clearly his time at the RFL came to an end when he was asked to produce a report as to whether Wayne Bennett should be given an extension to his contract to the World Cup, and said absolutely that the work that we've done today, irrespective of the Great Britain tour, which I think we'll look back on as a missed and wasted opportunity, whatever that was supposed to be, that we were so far down the track halfway into a World Cup that he wanted Bennett to complete the job, and cited how far they'd got in 2017, and again, you're there to win a tournament. They got to the final and nearly won a tournament, and I think they felt the next step was building on that, and he wanted to keep it as near the same as he could. The RFL, for whatever reason, took his report and went, we'll get Sean Wayne, and being an honourable man, Kevin Sinfield said, I don't think there's a lot more I can do in this role. I think there are a number of reasons, I believe, why he's leaving Leeds. Tellingly, some of it reflects on the sport itself, where it is at the moment, how it's likely to move forward, and his role within that. I think it's partly to do clearly with the job that he's doing at Leeds, which I think he said he gets no satisfaction out of, and he'd signed again in a performance-related position, but he was now a bureaucrat and an administrator, and he didn't want to do that, and he couldn't see that changing. And I think when we're talking about why Wigan are not signing George Williams and why Kevin Sinfield isn't staying at Leeds, I think those are 2 of our bigger clubs who are really feeling a financial pinch. So on the one hand, he's trying to juggle a budget that isn't what he was told it was going to be for all of the obvious reasons. On the other hand, he's being told, not even sure there is really a director of rugby role in the essence in which you were brought in, so would you mind cleaning the dishes and doing the washing up as well, which he didn't want to do. Understand that. And then I think there's the whole Rob Burrow scenario, where the one thing that has given him an immense amount of satisfaction, for the saddest of reasons, is being able to go out there and do his 7 marathons, reevaluate life, what it means, how you shouldn't really spend a lot of time doing something you're not enjoying. So I think all of that has weighed into his decision. For me, the only sadness is not even so much that Rugby League are losing the greatest asset it's got outside of Rugby League at the moment, and I don't think anybody can argue with the fact that when your name gets mentioned in the Houses of Parliament, we can't do that with anything or anybody at the moment. So clearly he is the sports asset. If Radio 4 rang up and wanted to speak to somebody about Rugby League, the likelihood is they would ask for the only guy they know of at the moment. So to go to another sport in what you might deem to be a lesser role in a hierarchy than he's currently in at the moment, so you go from being a director of something to an assistant of something, I think that's the sadness. Had the FA rang him up and said, we're looking for a new chief executive, we know you don't really have a lot of experience in football, but we really like what you've done in Rugby League. We like the way the story of you helping out your teammate is everything we're about in terms of our values and ethics, and we've got some people here that can teach you the ins and outs of football, and you move from being a director of rugby in Rugby League to a chief executive in football, you go with all of our blessing because you couldn't turn that down.
Yeah.
I think the sadness is that, not that even it's rugby union, but unless he has had a quiet chat with Eddie Jones saying, get in somewhere, prove yourself for 6 months and then you're on the England coaching staff, to me it's a step down. But yeah, I just think in terms of the profile of the sport, we should have done more to keep people like him because we can't afford to lose him. And if he wasn't happy in the current club environment he's in, for whatever reason, and it could be, a clash of personalities or an unfulfilment of the role he thought that he was originally employed for, surely as a sport we could have found him some role.
Who have we got left? Who's the current face of Rugby League?
Well, there is no face of Rugby League. I mean, again, and it's not for me to say, in the same way that we've always, for the years that we've been playing, we've never asked for a coach to be sacked. I think we have a real appreciation of how tough that job is. We rarely, if ever, criticise a referee, except for perhaps mistaken identity. And I wouldn't necessarily say that, we should have Ralph Rimmer removed from his job and put in the tower immediately. What I would say is, if the game felt that Kevin Sinfield could do a job at the governing body and be its spokesperson and contribute in a chief executive type of role, should have made that happen.
Then we end up like Bradford Bulls where they had 300 chief executives.
I just think it's a shame that we've lost him at a time where his profile for us is so high. And again, clearly the whole Rob Burrow, Kevin Sinfield story, built on the back of extreme tragedy, is uplifting for everybody because he keeps saying it and it's genuine. It's for a mate. And that is Rugby League's Captain Tom moment. That's where we appeal to the world outside of Rugby League. And we have nobody else that can do that.
Right, well, there's Paul, straight in there, on YouTube. Isn't there a job going at Super League? The one Ken Davies got.
Well,
it's the interim, whatever Ken Davies.
If you're going to have separate organisations, he would have been perfect. The problem is, what we're seeing with this Friday is exactly why you don't need... You either so define it whereby Super League is a subsidiary of something, but it can't compete. But yeah, I absolutely make him executive chairman of Super League, provided they become a marketing body rather than one that tries to lead the game down a cul-de-sac and he can't get out of it this particular weekend, which is just an example of how dysfunctional. I mean, again, just talking about that, how bloody minded was it to put fixtures on this weekend? And yet some of the people that are now saying we shouldn't have domestic fixtures this weekend were the people that decided we would have fixtures this weekend.
Do you reckon they put fixtures on when they thought they'd have full crowds and selling beer and burgers?
But if they couldn't sacrifice one extra loop game to have this weekend for... Everybody paid lip service to the fact that they want England to do the best they can in the World Cup. They want to have the best preparation. So the one game they've got in the one international window that we knew about, that was announced before any Super League fixture, was that we already decided we weren't going to honour that. There's a real... Again, I don't know what it must be like in some boardrooms at Super League clubs at the moment, but you've got some guys who own clubs or sit round as directors of Super League making a decision like that. Virtually every coach now coming out and saying we shouldn't be doing it. So right, the person should be telling works in the next office because they voted for it. So when Ian Watson is saying don't pick any of my players, it's hard enough when you've had COVID run through the camp, you want me to play a fixture on the same night, so please don't pick my players for England. Does he then knock on Ken Davies' door, who's the executive?
He's not there anymore, though, is he?
Does he knock on the door of Ken Davies, who was the executive chairman of Super League, who was the guy who was party to the fact that his team are playing? And we're not blaming Ken or Ian, we're using that as an example of how dysfunctional this sport is at the moment.
We might get away with picking up Huddersfield. They might not blame us in the way that Salford fans blame us for picking up them.
I'm saying it's an example of... But Kevin Sinfield could have been the honest broker that maybe, as part of a deal to bring unity, could have been the person to bring in and negotiate that.
But there isn't even a fixture on the card this week that you go, I've got to shoot. Oh, I've got to get me tickets and head down to the Rocket to go see Wakefield Wigan, which will be a good game.
Except that we already know there's going to be two of Wakefield's best players not playing. We know there's probably going to be 4 or 5 of Wigan's.
What if Tom Johnston's in the Combined Nations Super All-Star mega team? 'Cause he's from Germany.
Perfect.
What if he doesn't sing the national anthem? Sean Wayne might be putting up. What happens if Mikel Arlecki doesn't sing the national anthem of England, which no one knows what it is anyway, because he's not English? What do people expect? I don't know. Does anybody care? I mean, obviously Scully does, because he sang it on Total Sport that time, which was brilliant.
I just think that the situation we're in at the moment with this weekend exemplifies everything that is wrong with the sport at the moment. And we do need somebody to lead us to whatever the vision is going to be. And I genuinely do think that Kevin Sinfield could have been that man. And that we would have been so much better as a sport if we'd managed to find a role to retain.
Here's James. England versus All Nations needs scrapping. Why mix all players from different teams into a COVID cauldron? I like that, COVID cauldron.
I think that's a very fair point.
And then send them back to spread it through every club madness. You know, I've been saying this about the Euros going on. What kind of special morons does it take to come up with an idea of having a global tournament, an international football tournament being played across a whole continent while there's a pandemic going on? I mean, it's utterly stupid. We all saw the scenes on Friday night of England and Scotland fans, despite, Sadiq Khan and all these politicians saying, don't come down to London if you haven't got a ticket. Of course they're going to go down to London if they've got a ticket, English, Scottish or whatever, and party, because they're all idiots. So what's going to happen next week for the next round of fixtures?
It's the huge inconsistency in... I mean, it's fantastic that we might get 45,000 people at Wembley as a testing. I don't know what we're testing. What are we testing? I don't know. But surely we either do it or we don't. So we've got club games where we can only have 4,000, but we can have a game where fans from loads of clubs are coming together and can have 45,000.
Well,
which is, surely you either... Well,
explain to me the logic of perhaps having a men's Super League game in a stadium and having up to 4,000, but having a women's Super League game in the same stadium and having up to 100. From what I understand.
I suspect it'll be to do with the cost of stewarding. Explain to me how Wakefield could be playing a women's Super League game away in Warrington while teams were playing at Wakefield. I mean, again, it's an anomaly.
Why are Huddersfield playing Featherstone at Odsal? Unless they're paying, back some of the rent. Are the RFL paying themselves rent? Well, the stock car's going around at the same time. Is the pitch wide enough for Featherstone and Huddersfield to play tonight? I don't know.
No, I think that's a really good point about. I mean, we've lost 4 or 5 games to COVID now, if you include Keighley and Coventry at the weekend. We know that there are issues with Hull KR. And their game at St Helens is postponed this weekend. That is a really good point about if we know COVID is within teams. I mean, Leeds are one of the teams that have not played for 2 weeks because of a COVID shutdown. 3 of their players, who may well have tested negative but could still be carriers, because that's apparently how it works, are now going and mixing with players from other teams.
We are less than 4 weeks away from Wembley. So there will be players from Castleford and St Helens involved in this match. It's going to cause disruption because we all can watch the news. The numbers are going up again. We're not stupid.
And we've got to be honest, they're going up in areas where we play rugby league. It's in this part of the world that they are at their highest, in the northwest and a little bit of the Yorkshires of the Kirklees area. So we know that's where our teams are housed and where our players live, and it would be foolish to think we could avoid outbreaks of COVID. But we're not helping ourselves by allowing people to mix together in the way that they're going to.
I've not thought of it until James made that point. It's a very good point. Oh, dear.
Brilliant point.
I don't know how many tickets they've sold for.
Well, this is the other thing. Tickets are still available, it says, and there were only a limited amount available because of COVID. That would worry me if I, again, was the principal broadcaster and was saying, look, you've sold us this idea of we could have an extra game within our portfolio of matches. We get that there might only have been 4,000, 5,000 people there, whatever the maximum could be at Warrington. But are you telling us there isn't even going to be that?
Yeah.
And what sort of atmosphere will there be? Because one thing, I mean, you'll remember this from when the Exiles were scrapped, the last game, the atmosphere was dead. The crowd had already halved from, I think, something like 12,000 for the first game when it was first tried, to by the time the last game was played a couple of years later, it was, I think, 5,000.
Was that the one where the non-Wigan fans booed Sam Tompkins?
But there was no atmosphere.
No. Because it's not a real...
So again, you know, I get that we are very limited in what we can put on mid-season. I still think there is a case for saying if teams are flying to play in Catalan, and even if it had to be in on the day and out in the evening, that England as preparation would have been better going and playing France in France, but there would not have been any other games to compete with it this weekend.
Or England versus the Knights, or
England
versus Jamaica, or whatever, because Jamaica's all based on...
If Jay Connor and Jackson Hastings and any other, maybe Cruz Leeming, are in the combined nations, it almost is the England Knights. You'd have been better off saying it's the old probables and possibles, and it used to work in the past. It was a test trial and everybody went mate against mate. It's the nearest we're going to get to state of origin, and these guys who are in the probables have got to really justify their place, and the possibles have got everything to play for. They want to, and you go, okay, well, I'll go and watch that because there's something riding on it.
Red shirts versus green shirts.
Yeah,
that's what we want.
No, we've sold ourselves a pup again. I'm afraid.
I don't think the squad's still not been announced. I don't think.
Which again tells you something about how hard it should have been out about 3 o'clock this afternoon.
2 England footballers are isolated now because they interacted with Billy Gilmore. He's not coming home, Phil. He's not coming home. He's not coming home. Last Sunday he was coming home. Friday, not coming home.
Right, it's like Wigan win 7 matches, top of the league.
They're rubbish now.
Lose 2, got to get rid of the coach.
Sean Wayne, he's coming back. Well, he's not, because he didn't talk about it.
Well, he didn't say it wasn't.
No.
But he didn't say it was.
I did like the bit on the Zoom call.
That's got to be unsettling now, hasn't it?
What do you think so?
For everybody at Wigan.
I did like the bit on the Zoom call, because it was like us. We do 40 minutes and then run out of time. Sean Wayne said, I could have put my hand in my pocket to pay for longer. Well, the rest of us, obviously that wasn't for broadcast, but it was funny when he said it. John's not happy about Ian Watson, but I think he's a Salford fan, not happy that he left. He's called him a snake. That's not nice here. Come on.
Do you know what?
Come on, John, he did a good job for you. He's not a Judas like some people.
I think we probably do need to discuss the case of mistaken identity.
I mean, I did...
And laugh.
I mixed up...
Because
as I've said
it's
this
just
before,
so ridiculous, it doesn't...
Luke Burgess for somebody completely... That wasn't Luke Burgess. Whose name I've forgotten now, but... I was in the stands.
Was it Tom
on the pitch. No. I can't remember the guy's name. But, well, Dan Sargentson, was it him? Looked like him. On page 18.
I mean, the thing... The almost laughable part of this is the fact that while Adam O'Brien was getting treatment, it was clear that on the sideline remonstrations were being made with the fourth official, who was in contact with the man in the middle, to say, here's a clip, you've got the wrong person.
Is James Greenwood in the photo? Is he the one at the bottom?
Yeah.
All right, because I don't know what any of the players look like. So
he came in after the incident
after the
occurred.
event, yeah.
And you know, I'm not blaming the referee. It's a 100 mile an hour.
Yeah,
He may have been unsighted, looks at who's coming out of the tackle, picks the wrong man. The laughable element is that the people on the touchline knew it and got a message to the middle, and that wasn't changed. But I also think that for Ian Watson, who I think we've said is arguably one of the best young British coaches that we've seen for quite a while, and he's, as you say, taking teams to finals with the resource that he had is a massive credit to him. His side had an extra man for 60 minutes and didn't win. That's the story. Don't start blaming that you've sent the wrong man off. Huddersfield just weren't very good.
John gets the right to reply because this is how he works on this program. It's the way you left, Richard. That's the reason why he never acknowledged the fans when he left. So there you go, that's why they don't like Ian Watson.
Well, I think you're allowed a Cheshire Cat grin this week.
Paul says they're still ringing around to try and get players, probably.
Yeah,
They haven't rung us yet. Where are you?
Oh, my phone's on silent. No.
I don't think I'd pass a fitness test.
I think you probably would, actually, compared to some.
Got up the stairs today, that was good. So yeah, well, drama.
That is a massive result for Salford.
It is a big result, especially with what happened on Saturday. But that bottom of the league table now, obviously Wakefield lost to Cass. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Salford now on 2 wins from 10. But they are, the most important thing is they're 2 games above Lee with a game in hand as well. So
and they only play Lee once. So I'm not saying that Lee are already relegated, but they've now played the most amount of games, and sooner or later they have to close the gap on Salford by beating somebody else, and it's going to be a tall order, especially if there's no fans in the stadium, because Derek said he doesn't want them here.
This is what's laughable about the spat between 4020's John Wilkin. I love him now, he's great, he writes for the magazine and everything, and
Mr. D. Bowman Lee.
Judge Rinder's debowment of Lee. If you've not got the latest 4020 magazine, it's there. It's on the table. Look, it's got the Saints women on the front before they all got COVID and couldn't play rugby against York. Or one of them did, and then they couldn't play, or whatever happened.
Except the RFL awarded the game to York because St Helens didn't have enough cases to justify it being called off.
Obviously, I don't know anything. And I'm just pontificating, which is always a dangerous thing to do. But I wonder how important that result will be come the end of the season. If you look at the Women's Super League table, and where York are, and where teams are around them in the table, that could be a very important win for York in a game you wouldn't have expected, because we saw them play a couple of weeks ago. You wouldn't have expected them to win. John Wilkin. The table doesn't like it. And he's right, because St Helens are second in the table. They've won 7 of their 9 games. And Leeds and Turing have played 11. And they have lost 11. And if Lee played, well, let's use a different example. Barrow and West Wales Raiders, right? They're 2 real teams. They're in League One. If you said to someone, Barrow are better than West Wales, they'd say, fair enough. But if West Wales say, well, no, they're not. Well, hang on, they'll look at the league table. They're better than you.
Is that Rangulus West Wales?
It appears so. We've cast PDRL yesterday.
He did. Been released officially today. Yeah. Homesick.
Apparently he's off to Rochdale, isn't he?
Well, Bradford were rumoured to be interested in with the Danny Brough injury.
It's just why did you get involved in these things? I mean, bear in mind that we used to work for the king of the programme notes in Ken Bates. Mr.
Well, you say work for. We turned up and talked about.
I don't think
you ever knew that we did.
No, I don't think you ever. A company that may or may not have been owned by Ken Bates paid us money.
Well, you.
And
I got the joy of the Christmas meal.
Well, yeah. So, and he used to write very acerbic things about people, some of which may have been litigious, and some which weren't.
But yes, Derek has now said, if you're going to boo my team, I don't want you.
But he had a massive profile and a massive team and a massive... It's all tin pot. We are tin pot. We are what we are. No one cares about us. They don't care. I was thinking about this the other day. John Davison wrote a long piece about where Rugby League is. And people won't like it because a lot of it was negative. But a lot of it was realistic, and there's one thing that I think people don't realise, and I'm looking at a Great Britain tractor there from probably about 92, wasn't it? Which should we say that's kind of where the peak of...
Well, there was a World Cup in 1992, and 70,000 people turned up at Wembley to watch England play Australia in a game that wasn't decided until 5 minutes from time. Well, Great Britain played Australia 5 minutes from time.
Wigan are at the Pomp, probably, mentioned that the sports personality of the year all the time and blah, blah, blah. People knew who Scoy was and Martin O'Fire and Ellie Hanley and blah, blah, blah. So in 1992, yes, Sky Sports existed, but not to the point it does today. It's just before the Premier League starts.
Football League's part of its staple diet.
Football now has such a massive media profile, but it's not just football. In 1982, netball wasn't on TV, bar the odd international on grandstand every so often.
Well, and that normally only in the Commonwealth Games year. Or...
I'm trying to think of all the other sports that you didn't see. NBA basketball didn't have the same profile, but now everyone knows LeBron James. He's on the BBC website.
By the same token, and it might be an age thing as far as I'm concerned, I've had no idea that the French Open tennis has been in. I've had no idea that the American Open golf finished this week. They were big events in their own right because you didn't see much. Yeah. So when you saw them, they were magnified in their importance. Now it's part of a whole smorgasbord of different sports. And if you're a passionate follower of golf, you would have known that was on. If you're just a follower of sport, it's something else that's on, and you go, oh yeah, well I didn't realise that.
Without my other work, I wouldn't have realised the golf was on last week.
So we're competing in a world whereby there's more on the table, but there's more sports that are becoming crumbs on that table.
We just have to. There's no point having an argument with a man who owns a team at the bottom of the league and a bloke who used to be an international who is now on the telly and writes for a magazine.
It's good copy.
It's good for you. It's good for me reading because I thought he was great.
I have to say,
but no one knows who they are.
What this has taught us this week about the debacle with the England and the All-Stars, and I say debacle because we're on Monday. We don't know who if anybody can play for the All-Stars. There can't, because of everything that's going on at the moment, be any real promotion of this game. And even when this game is played, it's got to sit alongside two other Super League games. Yep. So if you're the editor of a newspaper, you're actually being given a choice of what you put in there. It's nonsense. But what we do know is that if you're going to have cut through, start with the internationals. So England-Scotland this week, which is a football game, in the middle of a tournament,
yes,
which is not going to determine who wins that tournament, is the lead item in the national news. So there's some pretty important things going on in the world at the moment. But let's go over and interview some drunken people about what they think's going to happen. It's the lead item in the news. And internationals can do that. So even rugby union, there's apparently a Lions tour coming up. Channel 4 is showing a live game of rugby union this weekend because the Lions have got their hit out against Japan. On Channel 4, the channel that we think should cover domestic rugby league. They're covering it
not
because it's an international.
Second division rugby league.
But so what are we doing to promote the World Cup, which is going to be our big cut through, including women's and wheelchair, which is probably as important as men's at the moment in terms of getting a new and diverse audience? We're devaluing the product mid-season.
In 1982, women's cricket was not a thing anyone would have heard of. I remember when Yorkshire came to play at our local club in a what they call benefit match, and Sashing Tendulkar hit loads of sixes out of the ground. It was ace. But the captain of the England women's cricket team played, but it wasn't on TV. No one. Now it's Why do they only play 4 days anyway in a test match? Do women fall apart after 4 days or something? I don't know. And they would have got a result if they'd have played 5 days. It wouldn't have rained either. So, but women's sport is a thing now. It wasn't in 1992.
Absolutely. No.
The
all
world
of these
has
things
changed.
We have to respond to, and we don't respond to them by not putting international rugby league at the very pinnacle of everything we throw. I mean, one of the reasons there's only two of us tonight is that our guest is already pre-recorded.
It's already up on YouTube, you can see it. The head coach of England.
Which you will be able to see at your leisure. We've decided to focus on the wheelchair international that's on this weekend, mainly because we think it's a fantastic variant of the sport, but all being well, if we're allowed to go, we're incredibly excited to see it firsthand, and we would recommend anybody who's around on Saturday at 12:30 on the BBC Red Button to watch it as well, because the Wheelchair World Cup is going to be absolutely fantastic.
We might win. As he says, it's brutal, it's violent. Yeah. Now, how could you not want to watch them? All these bring back the biff merchants. What was that letter in there?
Watch Wheelchair.
Which I wrote about in my column.
But what we decided was, rather than maybe spend too much time talking about all of the domestic issues, we would also add in this element of the fact that we are cognizant of the sport has to be different. So we've gone and spoken to Tom Coyd, who is the England wheelchair head coach, who speaks really well about his sport, and I hope you enjoy it. That's why there's only two of them.
Yeah, describe the chairs as sexy. They've got new chairs. They've got new chairs, and I do invent a new variant of rugby league in the interview. So I'm going to go and, as Danny Baker would say, leg it down to the patent office after the show and get that one in the books, and round up some mobility scooters to play that. Can Leeds get a team this week? Asked Liam. Call-ups, injuries. Is anybody still isolating?
The problem they've got is they don't know, well, they didn't know until today, what condition some of the players who have had COVID will be in. And whilst those who were track and trace will probably be alright, there are some who have, I mean, Ian Watson was saying that one of his players had come back having lost 8 kilograms. You know, you couldn't play somebody this weekend if they'd lost 8 kilograms because you again, duty of care, something we've talked about a lot. Leeds will probably field a team, but clearly it will include, I think, some academy players making their debut.
It's a good job we've got an academy.
Well, again, does that devalue the product of Super League? So is it a lose-lose situation?
Get those heritage numbers.
You know, the other thing is people will be expected to pay, for example, to go and watch Wakefield and Wigan when the stars are not there.
No.
So are the prices being lowered this week? Because
let me get Michael Carter on the phone.
No, they won't.
Oh, he's not answering my calls anymore.
They won't be.
Block my number.
So yeah,
and as you say, it's not like we mentioned last week how rugby union and cricket go on while internationals do, but you are used to that and you are well aware that you're not going to see all of the stars
and
when you pay
a
up.
lot more players play that sport than we have. Don't forget that in cricket or rugby union, what you're normally doing is providing players predominantly for one team, whereas we're providing the players for both teams. And the other thing is, we talk about being during the COVID crisis, when we've still got COVID crisis, but during the height of it, when we were in lockdown, a lot of people in Rugby League did the most fantastic work to get the sport up and running, even if it was behind closed doors, and the protocols and sacrifices that were made, especially the players, but also some of the people behind the scenes did an absolutely magnificent job to get the sport on. One thing we kept telling the outside world and the government was that we were flexible and adaptable, and we showed that to Sky because we changed our fixtures at short notice, or we got teams to step in if others couldn't play, or we went to neutral venues for everybody. When we realised that we weren't going to have crowds back in full for Super League games, we could have just, and we're doing it on a percentage basis this year anyway, we could have just canned this round of fixtures 2 weeks ago if we wanted to. And it wouldn't have made the slightest bit of material difference to who makes the grand final. Because we're already going to lose some games that we may not be. I don't think somebody said today that the games that Saints have got to play now outweighs the number of slots there are to play them in. So it may well be that Saints won't be able to play all of their scheduled games. But because we're doing it on a percentage, it actually doesn't matter. So why didn't we just cancel this round of games 3 or 4 weeks ago?
And Leeds, of course, are playing for Catalans the night before the cup final. And Huddersfield Wigan
the night
that night as well.
So we can be flexible if we want to be. But just cancel this weekend. Because I guarantee that looking at the crowds at some of the Super League games we had last weekend, that the games we have this weekend are not going to cover their costs.
Someone will moan, though, that... I'll use my own team as an example. Someone will moan that it's not fair because Wigan would have had an easy 2 points against Wakefield, whereas Leeds would have had a tough game itself. I don't know.
But there's two things with that. One is there is no obvious form line this year.
I'm talking about fans being
because of week to week what is happening.
Is that the squad?
Oh yeah, I've been selected. But the other thing about that is we've got a magic weekend. So the fixture list is skewed anyway.
Imagine.
Not everybody plays everybody, do they? So it doesn't matter if you take a round of fixtures out. It would have made economic sense, it would have made player welfare sense, and we would have promoted the international game because of it.
The Combined Nations squad is like on the first episode of Knowing Me, Knowing You with Alan Partridge, where Roger Moore is telling. He's at the motorway. What they should do is, and we mentioned this last week, they should be like the wrestling where they just come out on the day. Don't tell you who they are, they just turn up. Just come out on the pitch. Here they are. Vice Jet Connor. Boom.
The other thing as well is some people have bought tickets for the England game whose club sides are now playing at exactly the same time, which wasn't originally scheduled. Again, we don't want to be so inconveniencing our diminishing customer base. It's not negative, we're just talking about the practicalities of how we have shot ourselves in the foot.
England-Wales is on telly though, so that's good, beforehand.
The women?
St Helens and Friends combined 13. Bit harsh.
I'm looking forward to that.
It should be good, shouldn't it?
And mainly because, again, Wales are a bit of an unknown quantity.
Very much so.
But there seems to be some real positive vibes coming out of Welsh Rugby League at the moment. The community game is expanding, the women's game is expanding. They just won the Celtic Cup in a wheelchair and they're playing England. And there's a vibe about Welsh Rugby League. And again, I know that we've met him on a couple of occasions and we're big fans of the work that Gareth Keir's doing. But if you've got somebody who's prepared to lead and make decisions and have a plan and stick to a plan and get, he's talking about getting statues made to Welsh greats in Cardiff at the same time as launching a women's Super League team and getting more wheelchair teams. And you get the feeling from the outside looking in that there's a leader there who is moving the sport forward. Now, he can't do it on his own. I think he will be the first to admit he's got people around him that are helping him facilitate that. But they've agreed a plan and they're sticking to the plan. And that plan involves being proactive and expansion, and it's working. And it would be great if their women do give England a really competitive test.
I joke about it being the Saints and Friends 13, but they are the best team in the competition. You've seen them live twice. I've seen them live once. They are the best team in the competition.
They are.
But the player I'm most excited to see in an England shirt, because I think she's the most exciting player with ball in hand, is Fran Goldthorpe. Because whether it's Tom Johnston today in Wakefield colours, or Martin Afire in the past, or whoever, Regan Grace, throwing a Welsh player, everyone loves wingers. Ball in hand, space, excitement. It'll be interesting to see how she goes for England at the weekend. It'll be an interesting game. Again, it's on TV. The result will be what it be. Still no combined nation. Despite all the exclusive people haven't found out we're singing. Credit to Castleford Tigers women yesterday, who did it with only 2 subs, losing to Wigan 22-8. Whether that should happen or not, I'll leave up to you to decide. But they had a go. Well done to Wigan getting the points. Big 2 points for them in the competition. Leeds beat Bradford 42-10 at the home of Rugby League.
Big derby.
Leeds still with a better record than Wakefield's men at the Mobile Rocket this year. 2 tries from England's Caitlin Beavers.
So if that game was played at the Wembley of the North...
The Wembley of the North, yeah.
Why is there a Monday night game at the Wembley of the North? Why wasn't that a double hit then?
I don't know. Because Bradford men weren't due to play there anyway this week. Maybe they had stock cars on. It's interesting to me because just other results anyway before I get on to that. Warrington 52, Wakefield 14, and that was it because obviously the other game was cancelled.
But awarded 24-0 to York.
Yeah, which is a big result in terms of the league table and will be at the end of the season, because they are just 1 game behind Castleford and St Helens, and because Castleford's squad is now weaker than it was at the start of the season, you'd expect that might be a bit of a battle. That is going to be interesting, how important that 24-0 is come the split. But we've got 14 points anyway, so we're on the move. Come on, Wakey. We're going to win at some point. I do wonder with Leeds women, because obviously they've only got 2 players in the squad, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I've seen them more than St Helens. Are they just like a really good team unit rather than they've got outstanding individuals? I don't know. Or just they don't fit into the
I think
England plans?
The way St Helens came back earlier than everybody else, the way that the coaching team is from St Helens, I think again, we talk a lot about Sean Wayne has a certain way he wants to play, and that normally means he'll pick a certain type of player rather than another.
Yeah.
I think the same would be true of the women's game, that Craig Richards and his performance staff say, if I've got a core of players who play the way I already, they play on a week-to-week basis, and that's the style that we're going to take into the internationals, I want to pick players that can carry that out. So I don't really have any concerns about the England women's selection. I just think that again, some people who have watched Women's Rugby League for the first time this year, the semi-finals and final of the Challenge Cup and now an international, will just again see why we bang on about it so much, because it is a great spectacle, and whether it's one-sided or not, you'll see skill.
Give the players who have missed out something to think about ahead of the World Cup.
Yeah, get us a couple of new names in there, very young names. It's great.
Speaking of, you mentioned Sean Wayne there, so let's talk about Jake Connor, because I saw people at the weekend saying, I can't believe he's not in the England squad because he's set up all of the tries for Hull against Lee, forgetting the fact that Lee are the bottom team in the division. Isn't the fact here obvious that, and listening to Sean Wayne on Friday, the one thing I took away from it is, and you've mentioned it there, he likes things a certain way, whether that's on the pitch or off the pitch. He likes his players to play a certain way. He mentioned, I can't remember who asked him, but he was asked about Herbie Farnworth and why he wasn't in the squad and he's in the squad, or vice versa, or whatever. And he said he'd spoken to him and asked him to work on things, and because he'd done this. So obviously, he wants things done a certain way. Jake obviously doesn't fit in to how Sean Wayne A wants to play, or B, he's got better options in the position Jake Connor plays.
But I think that's exactly it. That,
that doesn't mean Jake Connor's not a very good rugby league player.
And he could have picked Jake Connor to play in the centre if he wanted to, because we've got a shortage of them with injury at the moment and unavailability. But I think what he said right at the very beginning, I think you might even have been on the media call, was that he was going to pick the best player in each position. And he believes, and it's hard to argue against it, that the most consistent fullback in Super League at the moment happens to be somebody who came through under Sean Wayne at Wigan, who knows exactly what's expected of him under a Sean Wayne regime, who can be a maverick himself, but doesn't have many errors, if any, in his game. And that's Sam Tompkins. And if he sat there and gone, right, here's my piece of paper, fullback. Who are the players that predominantly play fullback? I've got Sam Tompkins, I've got Zach Hardacre, and I've got Jake Connor. Right, I've got a guy who can play to my structure, I've got a guy who may turn up with his head on, may not, I've got a guy who's a complete maverick. I'll go with the bloke that I know. I think the only reason Jake Connor hasn't been selected is because he isn't Sam Tompkins.
He's Jack Grealish. The longer he's out of the team, the better he becomes among certain people, and it means people can write endless columns about him saying how great he is and how it's a disgrace.
Well, it'd be really interesting to see how he plays for the Combined Nations, assuming he is there. But I don't think many people, if any, could argue that one of the reasons Catalan are sitting top of the league, having a laugh, is because of the form like. That clearly works off the back of the forwards doing their job. But Sam Tompkins, every time I've seen him this year, has been arguably the best player on the field. So, I don't think it's anything other than that. I don't think he has a dislike of Jake Connor. I don't think he doesn't admire what Jake Connor can do. I would imagine he watched all those tries against Lee and went...
He watches all the games.
But it's not Sam Tompkins.
He watches all the games.
Who, for him, is exactly what he wants from his fullback. If we were coach of England, we may pick somebody else. We may not. Actually, I probably would pick Sam, the form that he's in.
it's difficult not to pick him. I just don't understand the. It is, as you say, he says he wants to pick the best players in their positions, not just put. How many years did England / Great Britain pick a million second rowers / loose forwards everywhere? Here's Paul Sculthorpe wearing 6. Here's Andy Farrell wearing 6.
Or standoffs on the wing.
Here's Kevin Sinfield wearing 6 in a World Cup semi-final or whatever. Here's all these people all over the pitch, not where they're supposed to be.
And if that's the way he wants to play...
Sinfield played 9 for England.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Had some of his best games for England at hooker. Because he got his hands on the ball and dictated play when he was in other positions, he was marginalised. Because if he was playing 6, Farrell was playing 13, it was, Farrell dictated. But yeah, I can see why Shaun Wane would go down that road. And hard to argue.
So if I make this into a video, I can't make it into a clickbait title. So Jay Connor. Well, can't agree with Shaun Wane. No. Bit disappointing. But he's got his way. Wayne's way. That's what Sky said.
The proof of the pudding will be if he wins the World Cup. And if he does... let's face it, he gets to the semi-final. And if he does that and his fullback is Sam Tompkins and he plays the way that Shaun Wane wants to play, we'll all be lauding him.
If he doesn't lose to Samoa in the first game.
I think they'll still get through. Although France should not be underestimated if...
Arthur Morg.
Well, not only the young talent that we spoke about last week, but if Trent Robinson is on their coaching staff, that makes them a much more difficult proposition.
Well, Mr. Valley, we should be in the All-Stars. He got a hat-trick against Lee. Get him in? So it's going to be Aidan Caesar and Blake Austin, is it? In the halves? No, Jackson Hastings.
Well, rumoured to be Aidan Caesar.
Still not email.
Still no.
But I think from Sky about UFOs. But
still no.
What else happened in the Super League last week? Oh, Wakefield lost to Cass again.
Was that now 15 games?
Yeah, I mean, Cass was media manager, had to type W 15 times on Twitter.
Goes back to about 1896.
Yeah.
Last time Wakefield beat
Castleford. I don't really. I can't be bothered.
They're hard to dislike.
No, I can't be bothered with Cass, to be honest. It's like I say, it's Leeds we don't like.
It's the same for everybody.
Yeah, Jacob Miller. I watched it again. It's kind of like general rugby league malaise at the minute. I was watching the game, but I wasn't part of it. I don't know.
What played on a Wednesday night.
That was weird because obviously that used to be a thing. Yorkshire Cup midweek games.
Very tired. I think both coaches said, I don't know what you expected, but
someone said to me, "Oh, we were rubbish." No, the game was rubbish. But that's not a criticism of the players. It's doing what they have to do.
Just so soon after the previous game that it was a get through rather than entertain.
If Danny Richardson had kicked all them goals, it would have looked much more comfortable for Castleford, but he didn't. He's in an interesting position now because he could be having to be the star man at Wembley, which a couple of weeks ago he might not have been. But
I think that was really the saddest thing to come out of that game were the 2 injuries.
Yeah.
Clearly Bill Tupou is, we know, out for the season now. Big blow for Wakefield because one of the most consistent centres in the league, and Gareth O'Brien in tears because it seemed that he knew whatever he suffered is more than 4 weeks to recover from. And again, I have real concerns at the moment about what we're going to be watching over the next month because teams are going to be excessively tired because of the amount of matches they're being forced to play, and they're going to have to play some academy players who possibly aren't yet ready to play at that level.
Because this is the thing, it's been mentioned before, it's not as if when the likes of the legend were thrown in as young players in the 80s, the professional players weren't the hunks of meat they are now.
Well, and we've said it again on many an occasion, but the physicality of full-time training would be greater than some of the games that were played in a part-time era. You have to be a certain size, strength and fitness to play Super League. And you can't get that by sometimes being thrown in as a kid. You'll have your fantastic moments like Jason Gary did on his debut, but could he play 10 consecutive games in that position and still be as effective at the moment? So, I think we've got to be very careful and be cognisant of the fact that Wakefield Castleford game we might be seeing quite a bit of that in coming weeks.
In the Championship, Toulouse didn't play because they didn't. Featherstone,
Bradford were allowed not to go.
Yeah,
understandably with the current situation.
9 from 9, Featherstone, who's still below Toulouse.
Best start to a season ever for the
mighty Rovers. Squally Rovers. It's Hull. Got the wrong Rovers. It's Rovers. 4 tries.
James Webster doing a good job there.
It must be. He's not one of those coaches people don't like Richard Agar.
But his record this year would say he's doing a fantastic job.
Without Leeds Rhinos cast-offs in their squad.
Yeah.
I was going to say Reinhold
A plus for Featherstone so far this year.
I was going to say Reinhold with a hat-trick, but it's Craig Hall. Getting the wrong holes at Fev. 68 points to 24, they beat Dewsbury. Did see people saying, it's a lot of points to concede, but they won.
I heard an interview with the Dewsbury coach afterwards, searingly honest about what we're watching at the moment and how he's not doing any coaching, he's just scrabbling around trying to get players week to week.
Is he working for Tim Sheens as well?
I tell you,
get him on board.
It was an eye-opening listen for what coaches have to do at the moment and why, again, we should not be too critical of anyone in that role.
We're no Joe Reg anymore. You can't just nick some young players, can you?
No.
On a week-by-week basis.
And the loan situation is such that with Super League squads being so thin at the moment, they don't want to let people go, even for a fortnight. London
came from behind to beat Whitehaven 46-12, 12-4 down at half-time. Tried to Squaze again. Zimbabwe's on, get him in the All-Stars. Newcastle 40, Oldham 6.
Good result. Good win. More important,
they're starting to move up, aren't they?
The crowd.
Yeah, over 1,000.
The highest declared crowd in that division at Newcastle.
Swinton 4, Halifax 34. Swinton still bottom. Big win for Widnes, 30 points to 20 over Sheffield. They're having an indifferent season, aren't they? The Eagles just can't seem to get a run together at the minute.
Same with York.
Well, exactly. Losing to Batley 22-20.
Well, I think again we need to say that
Superdome.
How good are Batley at the start of this season?
Third in the table, above their much vaunted fellow team beginning with B, who didn't play this weekend. On points difference percentage, I don't know. League One draw. 0-0 at half-time at the John Charles Arena.
Not Stadium. The first time that Hunslet have been 0-0 at half-time this year.
18-all Hunslet at Doncaster. I still don't know how that works with percentages. London Scholars 14, Barrow 24. I mean, that sounds like a good performance from Scholars, doesn't it? Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. I mean, again, full credit to Barrow for, being able to be on... What a game this week. Barrow Workington at the top of League One. A big Cumbrian derby, and I would imagine there'll be a couple of thousand people there at least. But that is a much improved performance from London Scholars.
West Wales 10, North Wales 60 in the Wales derby. Which is not happening for West Wales. I mean, lots of excitement at the start of the season, but it's just not clicked for them for whatever reason.
And now we're not going to get the dream team back partnership.
No. And Workington leaving it late against Rochdale 34.
Couldn't leave it any later. No. The hooter had gone.
34-28.
Last pass. If you were the coach of Rochdale, you'd be crying that they were trying to move the ball in their own quarters.
Don't do it. Even more disappointing news, Abigail, our Rochdale friend, she can't do her sponsor walk this week because of isolating, so she's having to wait until the next home game against London. But she's already up to £800 she's raised, so
go Abigail.
She's doing well.
Go Abigail.
Andy says, scrap the England match on Friday.
Scrap the Super League games on Friday and just have the England match.
Mark says, anyone who says Sam Tompkins isn't the best fullback in the Super League right now is being disingenuous. Yeah, that's Rugby League. Full of disingenuous people.
No, I agree with that. He is the best and most consistent fullback we've got. The big game Jake Connor had this year when he was up against Zach Hardacre, he probably performed the most poor that he has this season. And again, Sean Wayne would look at what are the guys like under severe pressure, because we're going to be playing someone in the World Cup. Could well be Samoa in the opening game if everybody comes over. There'll be a minute in that game that might determine the way it goes. And if you've got somebody that can't play to the system that the coach wants to play for and tries to do something off the cuff and it doesn't work, could be costly. The days of the scour, chip and chase have gone, sadly, in your own quarter. He's fine, by the way, anybody who is tuning in this week.
I've not read his column yet. Is he?
No, he ran. He's fine.
Is he looking forward to Origin at the weekend?
Well, that's intriguing, actually, because clearly the massive favourites are New South Wales, but
there's 18-year-old, what's going on there?
There's just something about ruling out Queensland on Queensland territory when they've got no chance. They tend to win those games.
Reece Walsh, obviously I've no idea who he is.
He's a teenage sensation who Brisbane allowed to let go to
play
for
teenage sensation.
New Zealand Warriors. Brisbane, of course, who need all the teenage sensations they can get at the moment. It's allowed him to leave.
Have they found any non-Queenslanders that can pick just random Fijians or anything? Because I know you can do that now.
I think there's a few in there.
Good stuff. And Melbourne Storm scored a load of points at the weekend. 66 against. There's some big scores, weren't
Big
there?
margin. It's big margin weekend again this weekend in the NRL. Complaints that the game has died over there because
Rugby League is dead. Was that from people who like
the good are very good, apparently.
No.
And the gap between the good and the not so good has been accentuated by the new rules.
Just come watch Super League. It's 7:05. I mean, if you're watching this live, we still haven't had the combined nations squad, so we can't do our in-depth profiles of the squad. Is there anything else to talk about? Because I'm not sure there is. I knew this wasn't going to be a long, drawn-out.
There's an extra 40 minutes with.
Yeah, exactly.
20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah. But I knew there wasn't going to be lots of other stuff for us to talk about this week, because it's been kind of. There isn't that much. There's lots happen, but there isn't a lot happening at the same time. It's kind of we're wanting to be excited about this international weekend, and we are excited about the international weekend, especially the women's game and the wheelchair game. But the main event, if you will, is kind of leaving us a bit cold.
I do think that's easily solved by cancelling this round of fixtures. And that there was talk that the RFL and Super League were meeting to decide what best could be done. Well, the best thing that could be done is if Super League climbed down in this respect.
Just imagine if they cancelled the England game when Sam Tompkins is halfway there in his car with Tom Davis. Why can't they
turn round?
If everyone's going to be meeting up with people from other squads anyway, why can't they just hit you with the Catalans who are playing? I know they want a full week in camp, whatever, but it's only combined nations. They're not real country. I know we're not a country either, but they're not a real country.
I think it would be really. I know he gave us his mobile phone number. Ring him any time you like. I think Ken Davies should make a public statement about why Super League decided to have fixtures this round. He's the executive chairman. Somebody from Super League needs to justify why there are fixtures on this week.
Stuart says, did I miss the Hull County Wigan analysis? I think you talked about it at the start, didn't you? When I was trying to fix the Wi-Fi.
I think we were quite rightly complimentary about not only Hull County winning without their first choice halfbacks, but the manner in which they defended. I think they did something like, was it 4, 5, 6 sets on their own line they defended. The worry, I think, from a Wigan point of view, would be the absolute lack of creativity.
Saints and Wigan in crisis?
No, this year, because of the circumstances that clubs are training under, everyone's in crisis. The sport's in crisis.
Right,
everybody is doing a fantastic job out there to keep us going.
Who was it? David Taylor said to us, like this week's international, you clash with the ladies' game later, so I'm only here until then. Sorry, so he's going to go off and watch.
Well, we might go on the ladies' game.
I don't know if I want to win that one. Well, I do, because obviously I've got a foot in the camp, haven't I, so to speak. So I know who I want to win in terms of... I don't want them to get too far ahead of us in the table, do I? Because Huddersfield already won a game. I don't know when we play Huddersfield, actually. There'll be some Wakefield Women's Super League content on the YouTube later this week, hopefully. So keep your eyes out for that. Because... and if you are... and this will, I mean, I don't know how many people watching this programme who are of any point to this all, but if you are a young person and you want a career in the sports media, I mentioned this on Twitter last week, get in touch with your local rugby league club and ask if they need someone to do stuff for like PDRL or women's rugby or wheelchair rugby or whatever, because chances are A, they will, and B, if you're good, you might make contacts and you might one day host a podcast from above a shop in North Leeds. Who knows?
You'll enjoy it, that's the main thing. You'll meet some wonderful people.
And it's better than
I think the other things to say is, should it go ahead, and there's no reason why it shouldn't, Jamaica are having a camp midweek.
Yes. They announced their squad last week, didn't they?
They're announcing a couple of really important community-based initiatives, and you get the chance to see their kids. So that's a good news story.
Plenty of players that are actually domestic based as well, not just picking.
Yeah, there's 14 of them that are domestic based.
Heritage players.
But it's only the heritage players that can be in camp in this country at the moment. So look out for that. I think it's Wednesday. A good news story. The new Forty20's out. That's a good news story.
It is. What's in it? What's in it? Apart from John Wilkin, I mean that's broken. Don't buy batteries from pound shops. That's the message.
Brian Mack's back.
I saw that. Yeah, he's back. He's got a thing.
He's got a thing.
He's not wanting to be the league coach.
Brian Mack is back. Louis off to Wembley.
Yep, he is.
They've
gone off Wembley. Yeah. Come on!
Great interview with Brian Carney about how we messed up the Lions and what it means.
Someone do a cup final song, because football teams don't do them anymore. So that'd be good.
Stevie Ward is going to Canada, but not in the manner in which he expected.
It makes me laugh because people might know there's a website called Flash Scores. It does football scores and stuff in Rugby League, and it had on there the NARL fixtures bill. Postpone. Right.
We take no pleasure.
No pleasure.
There was an international this weekend, so hats off to Bulgaria for running Serbia close. Big developments in the Balkans. That's in the magazine.
Have Serbia played twice now?
Yeah, and they're playing Montenegro this weekend, and then Albania
that's a big derby then.
They're doing a lot of good work in the Balkan region to foster the sport. You can read all about it in the new 4020 magazine.
Rugby League, big in the Balkans. Stuart says, if it was on, who would you have gone for in Saints versus Hull KR? I would have gone for Saints because, like John Wilkins says, they're probably better than Hull Kings Rose. He might not have said that though, because he was a former Nerva, of course. But,
wow. Born in the Principality.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have gone for Saints, but in fairness, Stuart, I went for Wigan at the weekend, and Huddersfield, and Saints, and that didn't work out well. So you probably would have liked me to go for Saints.
I would have thought that, on the basis of the fact that clearly we knew Hull KR had some COVID cases, but we didn't know how the extent of it pan out, and the fact that Saints rarely lose 2 games on the trot and would have been highly motivated, I would have gone with Saints if we were predicting. But I have nothing but admiration for Hull KR.
I had an email and I thought,
it's the squad.
It's where we are in the podcast charts. We've gone up to number 29 in Mexico in the Apple Podcast Rugby charts.
If that isn't worth celebrating, I don't know what is.
I mean, I can't believe in Mexico there are 28 other rugby podcasts that are more listened to than 4020 not live on the 4th of May, but apparently there were. Thank you to all our Mexican listeners.
It's not coming.
No. Thank you to all our Mexican listeners. I mean, that's probably likely to be just one person. I assume in Mexico's downloaded it just by mistake. And
we need a 4020 sombrero. Really,
yeah. I mean, I'm sure we could get one. Download the podcast. If you're listening on the podcast, the interview with Tom will follow, because I'll edit it on it. If you're watching, then it won't, and it'll just turn up as a separate video. But feel free to watch it. we're done. There's nothing else to talk about.
Feel free to watch the wheelchair game on Saturday lunchtime.
We'll wave at you from the crowd if they show us.
We might be the crowd.
We might be the crowd. We'll wave. We'll be wearing masks, unlike on the BBC at the games. I'm really glad that there are going to be people at Wembley, and so many people at Wembley, because I had this awful fear that we were going to have no one there, and people were going to say why, and I was going to say because you went to games and mugged to the camera and didn't wear a mask and hugged your mates and spat on them and stuff, and you thought that's why you're not going.
But that's already been done by football.
Yeah. So,
mind you, our players are all running out with tennis rackets.
Yeah.
I have to say that the government, who have invested a lot of money in the World Cup, can see the value of promoting Rugby League, so have made the Challenge Cup final one of their test events, and they are doing as much as they possibly can to keep Rugby League on track because they want the World Cup to be a success. Shame that some of the Super League clubs don't share their...
Stuart's just asking us questions. Is Blake Austin still potentially out of the Warrington door? Is he still coming to Leeds? Is he coming to Leeds yet? Is it Leeds yet?
The word on the street, which is not a street that I'm on, so don't take any of this as true. Anyway, I don't do news.
No, we don't do news.
Was that for George Williams to sign for Warrington, now that he is available earlier than was anticipated, Warrington need to release either Gareth Widdop or Blake Austin. That Gareth Widdop is not going to be released because A, he's playing so well, and B, his contract in the NRL that he's likely to sign, which could well be with Canberra to replace George Williams, because that's how things work. Wouldn't be till the start of next season anyway. So if there could be an agreement that Blake Austin would be paid the contract that he is due to be paid for the remainder of this year by Warrington, which would effectively make him a free agent for any other club that wanted to pick him up for the remainder of this year, that there is a club in West Yorkshire that is desperate for a standoff, who would clearly play him on the wing.
Well, there you go. That's exciting, isn't it? I was going to say there was something in the letters page I was going to mention, wasn't it?
The trouble is you legitimise the letter
by
reading their letters.
Legitimise the League Express letters page. If we just ignore it, it will go away. Like TV. Did you see someone compared us to that TV channel on Twitter last week? I said, it's disgraceful. I've not had the one that the news channel that had people like
GB News.
Yeah. I think only once we've had someone with a dodgy name sending a message, and it was when we were in Radio Yorkshire and Mark stopped me reading it before I got to it.
No, I don't think we can be compared to that in any way whatsoever.
Oh dear.
Other than
shambolic.
Yeah.
Rugby League big in the Balkans.
That's it.
There you go.
And on that bombshell.
Now, if we were then, we'd have a big graphic at the bottom of the screen which would A, be spelt incorrectly, and B, would say something like Nikolai Alevsky releasing the national anthem, but we'd spell Alevsky right, because that would be very on brand. Alright, we're done. We'll be back next Monday. I don't know if we'll have a guest, because I don't know what we're going to do. But
we might do. I think we will. I'm going to have a bourbon.
You have a bourbon. And yeah, enjoy the week. Fingers crossed there's some Rugby League on Friday. Internationals. We like internationals, they're good. Yeah, that's it. Right, I'm going to YouTube. I say goodbye.
It's not been announced yet.
No, the Combined Nations, they still haven't been announced. What can we do? We can't do anything. Please subscribe on YouTube, because we need subscribers. Well, we don't, but I'd quite like to get over 2,000. It's been hovering below that for a while, so yeah, enjoy your biscuits and enjoy your Rugby League. Right, it is International Week in the world of Rugby League, and joining us now on 4020 TV is the coach of the England Wheelchair Rugby League side, Tom Coyd. Tom, welcome to the show, and how excited are you to get back coaching the England side ahead of a game against Wales on Saturday?
No, super excited ahead of Saturday, and really, really proud of the players to have been able to get through the last 18 months really without hope at some points. They've been working so hard, and that something good's finally come over the horizon for them.
Yeah, how difficult has that period been? Because also we've had the men's Super League going on, but everything else pretty much has been stopped dead for the last 18 months.
And the domestic wheelchair season's been on hold hard because of the indoor nature and how much more spreadable COVID is indoors. So there were times there for the players in their clubs where they probably didn't think that they'd be able to play even this year as well. So they've managed to keep their enthusiasm with training at home incredibly well, and we've been using stuff like Zoom and Microsoft Teams to host group training sessions. At one stage before Christmas we were doing it every night of the week, so dumbbells and resistance bands, and then on Sundays we meditated. So there's been excellent application and attitude, and I think when we get to November we'll look back at that COVID period and find out we learned loads of really useful lessons. So I'm an optimist, as you can tell.
Presumably you haven't physically been able to get the squad together for any training sessions. So what do you do? Meet them the night before the game and discuss a game plan?
We hadn't been able to meet since November last year until the end of March this year. So that was our fully online period. But since the end of March, we've been training every 3 weeks at the EIS in Sheffield. And we've been having 6-hour training sessions, followed by normally a Sunday online review. So that's when we'll do most of our video analysis and team meetings. And it's been working really well for us. Like, online technology is really good these days, and it enables us, because our team's so spread out, we've got players as far south as Kent and as far north as Wigan. So having them all geographically together isn't always possible, but we can train very well online now. So yeah, we're in a pretty good place, I would say.
In terms of the game itself, what do you know about the opposition? Because Wales aren't quite as developed as you are as a squad, but it's going to be a big test for you, I think.
Well, we've been seeing a large bulk of the Wales squad play for their club team, which is North Wales Crusaders. So we've been able to do a certain amount of just casual research, watching them play. And we've also had the video from the Celtic Cup, which was on the 12th of June, where Wales obviously took home the spoils against Scotland and Ireland. So there's been a little bit of opportunity for research. I'm sure that they will play their best game of the year against us on Saturday, because they'll just be chomping at the bit to put on a show. Obviously, the exposure that we're getting on the BBC and our league's fantastic, and they won't need any more motivation to put on their best performance against us. So we'll have to put our best foot forward as well.
Yeah, how important is that to you on Saturday for that people perhaps for the first time are going to be exposed to wheelchair rugby league?
It's a brilliant step forward, and obviously the World Cup at the end of the year is going to thrust wheelchair rugby league into the spotlight in a way that it's never been before. But this game on Saturday is probably a fantastic first draft of how wheelchair can be best filmed from a TV point of view. Where do the cameras go so the action gets captured the best? The commentators and the analysts get a first dig at what things to pick up on, stories to highlight, because wheelchair rugby league is such a colourful game, and we've got people from the most diverse backgrounds. So developing those storylines from a storytelling point of view is going to be really exciting as well.
Now, in terms of a sport, I went to the Paralympics in 2012 in London. I had my ticket. I went and saw a bit of the wheelchair rugby, and that looks nothing like rugby to me. Whereas wheelchair rugby league, from the clips I've seen, is more like rugby league in wheelchairs. Like, I guess that's the best way you can do it. It is pretty much rugby league just transplanted into a sports hall and you're all sat down.
Everything we do is to make it look like the 13-a-side running game. So the laws of the game are ruthlessly combed and tweaked to make it just look as close to the rugby league that everyone knows and loves as possible. The Paralympic Wheelchair Rugby League is a great sport on its own, and it serves a brilliant purpose to get disabled athletes into competitive sport. But we pride ourselves on looking and feeling just like rugby league.
I think one of the things that people who haven't experienced it before will even feel watching it on their television screen is the physicality of it. safe to say that nobody shies away from those collisions?
Absolutely not. No, it's violent and it's brutal. And there's a few people who, when they first see these people in wheelchairs crashing into each other, will wince and recoil because there's something within us that thinks that people in wheelchairs need to be more protected or they're more vulnerable. But these guys just throw all of that into the wind. Their bravery is incredible, and anyone who's there on Saturday or catches a glimpse on TV will really feel how aggressive and how just like rugby league it is. It's brilliant.
And we'll get to know some personalities as well, because clearly James Simpson, all being well, will be playing on Saturday. He's an ambassador for the World Cup. He's done a lot of the media and PR, and his backstory is fantastic. But who else should we be looking out for, do you think?
Yeah, James Simpson's brilliant. He was on Sky Sports News yesterday afternoon, did a brilliant live feed from training, actually. So he's been an excellent ambassador, but there'll be a really good opportunity to get to know some of the other faces. So Sebastian Bucaro is an English national but lives in France, and France is probably his first language. So when he gets on interview, he does come out with some quirky bits and pieces just because he's not, an everyday English speaker, so he's always a good talker. The lads from down south, so Lewis King, Joe Coyd, they're a really good interview because they are a little bit out of the ordinary in terms of the rugby league heartlands, and they've got that southeastern influence, which is a different twist on what rugby league fans tend to expect. And then there's the youthful exuberance of Tom Halliwell and Nathan Collins, who are fresh out of school. And they just easy and do their own thing. So all really good characters to have in the game.
In terms of the Coyd name as well, it's resonant with wheelchair rugby league. Founding father, you've got a brother playing, you yourself are coaching. It means a big thing to the family, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what our household would look like if it wasn't for rugby league, to be honest. We've got a basement in the house that looks a little bit like the wall behind you, just memorabilia all over the gaff. And it's definitely the centrepiece of what we're about. I think the community fighting for each other, that family spirit that rugby league lives and breathes is a massive part of how we operate as Coyds too. Growing up around my dad, it was never in doubt that we were going to be entrenched in rugby league in some way. But it's not just England wheelchair. We have our local Medway Dragons running game team that Joe and I both play for as well, and Dad coaches on. So if it's not England wheelchair, it's some other form of rugby league pretty much every day and night of the week. So it's all we know and it's all we want.
And this is the thing to mention about wheelchair rugby league. It's for everyone. Any gender, any ability, disability can play wheelchair rugby league.
We champion it as the most diverse and the most inclusive sport in the world. So you can obviously play if you're disabled, but equally if you're non-disabled. Men and women take the field in the same team, and there's within reason no upper or lower age limit as well, as long as people are playing safely. So I don't know of any other sport in the world that can boast those things and be competitive and violent and excellent at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
I think the other great thing about Saturday is you'll be coming up that mate against mate, because Jodie Boyd-Ward is due to play for Wales against a lot of her Leeds Rhinos teammates. Wales at the Celtic Cup, as you mentioned, fielded a father and son combination who could well be in action again, and that just emphasises the fact that it is the most inclusive and I suppose diverse sport that we can possibly put out there.
100%, and obviously the domestic wheelchair game is still community based. It's still got that grassroots element, which is just a really lovely thing to be a part of, and professionalism takes things in a different direction. But obviously at national level, we operate as professionals and we're very elite, but the players in their day to day are very much interacting as grassroots athletes who are doing it for the love of the game not as a career per se, not yet, but hopefully things like that will change over the next few years with how much attention disability sport's getting. You never know. But yeah, it's just a brilliant thing to be a part of. There's so many storylines going on. It's great.
These new wheelchairs you've got, these are not the ones when you go to your local A&E and you've had a heavy night out and push you in. These are not the ones you're playing rugby league in at the weekend, are they?
No, and they're not like a shopping cart either. They are Formula One Ferraris. It's difficult to describe unless you've played in a basic chair and then a top end one. But the feedback from the players, they've only had them for a couple of weeks now. But James Simpson was telling me he's getting on the end of plays that he wasn't before, which is right there as your 1% performance improvement. So they look great. They're sexy as hell as well. So that's important. Look good, play good, and it's just taken our program to another level. So incredibly grateful for the nearing that RGK have provided. It's just put us in a brilliant place, and we're just tracking really well for November, boys.
You have given me an idea now of mobility scooter rugby league, which I don't know how that would work, but I'm going to work on that. The World Cup is coming. We are all very excited about it. England, in the men's competition, not the favourites. In the women's competition, not the favourites. In the wheelchair competition, not to put pressure on you, Tom, you're among the favourites. I'm going to say among, just a little bit of pressure on you. How are you dealing with that, knowing that you're going into this competition? Some people are expecting you to be bringing that trophy home.
I think it's something that we've earned. We've been playing so well over the last few years. Whitewashed the Ashes Tour, beat France in France for the first time of any country ever, and drew right to up there. I think France will rightly so come into that World Cup in top spot, being world number one and reigning champions. So we'll be snapping at their heels and putting pressure on them. But the players, they're really keen on being brilliant ambassadors for the game as well. Being among the best players in the world is really important. That they bring the fans in and they show how good they are as characters as well as athletes. So we'll just be flying the flag as best we can for our country and for our game.
The last World Cup final in France, I think there were about 4,000 there in Perpignan, created a tremendous, fervent atmosphere. One of the most dramatic climaxes ever to any game, heartbreaking from England's point of view. How much, a little bit of that, have you carried into all this preparation and into the World Cup?
Yeah, that 17 final, it's stained into the memory of all the players who were a part of it, just because of how, like you say, fervent and climactic, and those sort of moments in your life, they don't really fade away. You always hold on to those vivid memories. I think it's a brilliant checkpoint in the history of English Rugby League, how close we got to taking home the trophy from France, who was so well supported and had much more history in the game at that point than we did, having played it for longer and having a stronger domestic competition. So, we're aware of how well we did at that tournament. We're also aware of how much progress we've made in England with the sport of wheelchair rugby league. The final in 2021 is going to look very different if we get there.
You're playing at places like the Copper Box as well for the World Cup. I know we're focusing on Wales this week. That's the AIS, which is a great venue and be part of the World Cup. But what does it mean to you to be playing again at an Olympic venue? There's a likelihood there that you're going to get a big crowd that will, again, be extremely passionate. They may not know exactly what they're watching, but it'll only take them a couple of plays to get right behind it. That must be really exciting to even be thinking about playing at a venue like that.
Yeah, it's buzzing really. Like, I can't get my head around playing in front of, I've heard up to 6,000. the noise in there would be incredible. I did go to a few events at the Copper Box at the 2012 games, so I got a feel for what the atmosphere will be like. I don't think any wheelchair player in the world will know what that feels like until they get in there, though, because as far as I'm aware, that will be the biggest crowd on record. So we'll be breaking records all over the shop in terms of attendance and decibels, probably. It's just like another massive step forward for the game, and being championed alongside the men and women. It's just rugby league's so good at doing things first, and it's just another feather in our cap.
I think there's one thing we can guarantee after this weekend: whatever happens on the pitch on the Saturday, people are going to see the game and they're going to be going straight off and trying to get some tickets for these matches, because it is going to be something that opens eyes and going to be great for people to experience in the flesh in the autumn.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, and I'm right there with you. I think once people get a taste for wheelchair rugby league, and not only do they see how rugby league it is and how brutal it is, just like one of the things we love rugby league most for, but then they get a sense of the storylines and the humble origins that people have come from, whether you've been born with a disability or you've had an injury that's led you to this place. It's like a fairy tale. It's a Hollywood script. Some of the people who are going to be turning out in an England shirt on Saturday. So it's proper humbling to be a part of, and it gets me choked up sometimes, but it's I'm just super grateful to be a part of it.
I hope it's got a good ending.
It will have.
Fingers crossed. Me and Phil are hoping to be there on Saturday if they let us in. Tom, thank you very much for your time. Best of luck for Saturday. Fingers crossed we'll see you there, and we'll see you at the World Cup as well.
Thanks for covering us, lads. I really appreciate it.